College is arguably one of the most challenging and stressful times in a young adult's life. With many life changes, it's easy and common for a student to feel overwhelmed or stressed out. I went to ASU's Health Services to speak to the Associate Vice President and Director of ASU's Health and Counseling Services to see how he weighs in and helps students cope with stress.
I'm Aaron Krasnow. I'm a psychologist. I'm also Associate Vice President and Director of ASU's Health and Counseling Services. Been at ASU for 14 years. So at ASU Counseling and Health Services, the stress is one of the most common reasons that people come in for counseling. And so depending on what the person's stressors are about, the first thing we do is to have a conversation with them about what their concerns are, what they see are the root of those things. Maybe we'd be able to offer them some additional thoughts on what might be causing those stressors. And then we can teach coping skills. Sometimes those coping skills are perspectives on their stress. A certain way of looking at or thinking about your circumstance can lead to more feelings of stress or less feelings of stress. Sometimes it's about lifestyle changes. People might not be getting enough sleep, they might not be exercising, they may be aspects of their diet or getting a medical checkup that influence their stress. And so by looking at their whole life, we're able to craft a strategy that is best fit for them to help them cope with their stressors. So at ASU Health and Counseling, we work with domestic and international students. Any ASU student is eligible for our services.
So I sat down with an international student. I spoke to them about day-to-day stress that they feel and methods they use to cope.
My name is Mandarin Gao. My friend called me MJ. I'm majoring in human resource major in WP Career School. I'm a freshman. I'm taking 18 credits this year.
Taking many credit hours is a common stress Dr. Krasnow recognizes and addresses in his line of work.
Being a college student is inherently stressful by function of the fact that college is a high-performance environment. And so common stressors that students face are academic stresses. Students report often feeling overwhelmed by all of their commitments. Many students are living away from home, sometimes very far away, and even when they're living somewhere close to home, it may be the first time they lived on their own or with a roommate or with people unlike themselves. And all of those things can be stressful. They can be positive stress in the sense that it creates new experiences and you grow from that, and they can be really difficult, just stressful at times, experiences.
I'm stressed out about balance my social life and my school works because the study in the United States is kind of heavy and you have to pay attention on the daily works. But I also want some experience with American friends, so that's really hard for me to balance.
We think of those as anxiety and depressive stresses that are a function of adjusting to a new environment. So all of our staff at Health and Counseling will work with international students, domestic students, or any student at all. We have some of our staff who are specially trained in working with different populations. And a number of our staff members were international students themselves, and we've hired them for their careers here in the U.S., but they're from various countries. We have one clinician from Bulgaria, one clinician from China, another from Vietnam, and Canada. I'm thinking who else is on the team, Mexico, Japan, and South Korea. And so as a result of that kind of diversification of our staff, I think we've become increasingly culturally competent, relevant to students, and particularly international students. They recognize that we have a global perspective on this and that we're trying to represent all students' needs.
I will join some activities, like for example, doing some exercise. I joined the Ultimate Frisbee Club this year. I will play Frisbee and make new friends there and help me release the stress. If I return my home country without a degree, that's gonna be a big shame on my family, especially my parents, because my parents spent a lot of money to pay for me go to school here, and if I didn't get a degree and return my home country, that's gonna be a huge waste.
Flunking out of college and losing money is a big fear for many students. However, in some cultures, some students would rather die rather than return home without a degree and experience the shame that comes along with that.
So all students have enormous pressure on them to succeed at any university. And for many international students, That pressure could be exacerbated by cultural or family influences.
Suicide among international students is common. A lot of times, students don't want to bring humiliation to their family, so they find that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Thoughts of harming oneself, harming somebody else, even sometimes attempting that, is something that happens. Thoughts of suicidality are relatively common when people are feeling overwhelmed or stressed. Thoughts of harming yourself, or even the intention to, or the actions of harming yourself, is really best thought of as a problem-solving skill. People have pain. They have emotional or intrapsychic pain, and they're trying to solve it somehow. And thoughts of hurting yourself or dying is our brain's way of sometimes coming up with a solution.
I have a friend who is older than me, and she's studying in University of Washington at Seattle, because the school in there is quarterly, so they basically have midterm every single week. So because she also is majoring in computer science, so there are a lot of works, and she is really stretched out about the works, but she also don't want change the major. So that she was like thinking about that, and she was like talk with me about how stretched is her school life. But I think her boyfriend fixed that out and talked to her, and now she's totally fine.
Luckily, MJ's friend sought out help before actually harming herself. However, for some of Dr. Krasnow's clients, we can't say that that's always true.
So the reality of working with human beings is sometimes people do die, and sometimes they die by suicide. It is still relatively rare. More people don't kill themselves than do kill themselves. More people seek help and don't kill themselves than seek help and do or don't seek help. But we know it's a risk, and in younger people it is something to look out for. There's a lot of things that are talked about, like suicide is the second leading cause of death in people age 18 to 25. That is true. In Arizona, like many states, there's laws associated with petitioning someone for an involuntary assessment for their mental health needs. And a licensed psychologist like myself and any licensed clinician, police officers, can do a petition so that someone who we think is going to harm themselves is assessed by a professional, and a determination is made by the courts of whether they can be held involuntarily at that point. It's a tiny, tiny fraction of people who have those feelings are actually going to act upon it, and that we know that, and then in those circumstances we take those steps. But most of the time when people are having thoughts of hurting themselves, or even have real concerns that they might, what we do is we try and create safety plans with them, try and come up with additional ideas, figure out whether they want to die, intend to die, or do they just want the pain to turn off. And those are different things.
The millennial generation has a better understanding and is more aware of mental health issues than previous generations, and they are more willing to speak about it and seek help. Here are some suggestions to maintain proper mental health.
The first thing is to maintain your physical health, to get enough sleep, to eat right, and to exercise. There's a little secret in mental health, which is therapy works, medication for anxiety and depression works, but exercise works just as well as those two other things. And when you put those together, that's when people get the most help.
It's okay to feel overwhelmed and stressed out. The best thing you can do is acknowledge your feelings and work through them. Below is a suicide helpline. Suicide is never the answer.